Deep in the hills of southeastern Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, a site older than Stonehenge and the pyramids by thousands of years. Built over 11,000 years ago, this temple of massive stone pillars carved with strange animals and symbols rewrites everything we thought we knew about human history. Who built it long before agriculture or cities existed? How did they move and shape stones, weighing tons with primitive tools? And why was it deliberately buried as if to hide it from the world? Göbekli Tepe is not just an archaeological site. It is a riddle from the dawn of civilization, a place that challenges the very origins of religion society. Nestled in the arid hills of southeastern Turkey lies a monument that defies the logic of history. Göbekli Tepe, constructed around 9600 BCE, stands as the world's oldest known megalithic structure, predating Stonehenge by 6 millennia. What makes it truly baffling is not just its age, but the context of its creation. This was a time before agriculture, pottery, or metallurgy, when humans roamed in small, mobile bands of hunter-gatherers. Yet here we find massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some towering over 5 meters high and weighing up to 20 tons, meticulously arranged in circular enclosures. The precision scale and intentional design beg the question, how could a supposedly primitive society, without cities or written language, conceive and construct such an architectural marvel? And more puzzlingly, why? What do you think? Could a society without writing cities or metal tools truly have built something like Göbekli Tepe on their own? Or might there be something missing from the story we've been told about our past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theory. At the time Göbekli Tepe rose from the earth, humanity was still in its so-called primitive phase. Small bands of nomadic hunter-gatherers roaming the land, following seasonal game with no permanent homes, no cities, and no organized religion. There were no written records, no wheels, no domesticated animals. And yet these same people somehow erected multi-ton stone pillars with symbolic carvings arranged in precise, intentional circles. According to conventional timelines, such feats should have been impossible. The monument stands as a direct contradiction to the belief that complex construction required agriculture and hierarchy. Göbekli Tepe forces us to ask, were early humans far more advanced than we've assumed? When Göbekli Tepe was first noticed in the 1960s, archaeologists mistook it for a medieval cemetery, just another pile of weathered stones. It wasn't until the 1990s, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began systematic excavation, that the site's true age stunned the academic world. Radiocarbon dating placed its oldest layers at nearly 12,000 years old, catapulting it far beyond anything previously known. That means it predates not only the Egyptian pyramids by 7,000 years, but also the invention of pottery and the wheel. This wasn't just another temple, it was a direct challenge to the established narrative of civilization. Göbekli Tepe forced scholars to reconsider when and how human culture, spirituality, and complex architecture truly began. Despite decades of excavation, the identity of Göbekli Tepe's builders remains completely unknown. No written records were left behind because writing hadn't been invented yet. No residential structures have been found nearby, and no tools clearly associated with the construction have been recovered. It's as if an entire group of people appeared, built a sacred monument of stunning scale and precision, and vanished. This raises troubling questions. How did a society without cities or kings coordinate such massive labor? Were they spiritually motivated, united by ritual, or do they represent a cultural stage we've never documented? The mystery lies not only in the stones, but in the hands that shaped them and the minds that imagined what they meant. The architectural sophistication is truly stunning. The T-shaped stone pillars weren't placed randomly. They are aligned and symmetrical, often carved with images of animals, abstract symbols, and even human-like figures. This level of planning implies an early spiritual hierarchy or complex cultural coordination. It suggests the presence of leaders, skilled artisans, and perhaps even a priestly class, all within a society we once thought to be entirely nomadic and egalitarian. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just confuse archaeologists, it reawakens the biggest questions we once thought were already settled. How could a structure of such architectural complexity have emerged during a time when humans were supposedly scattered, lacking social organization, writing the wheel, or even metal tools? Could Göbekli Tepe be the surviving trace of a long-lost advanced civilization, one capable of organizing large-scale labor understanding, symbolism, and holding spiritual beliefs powerful enough to mobilize hundreds of people for a non-material goal? One leading theory proposes that the knowledge required to construct Göbekli Tepe did not emerge in isolation, but may be the inherited legacy of an even older civilization destroyed during the chaos of the Younger Dryas, a sudden climate shift around 10,800 BCE that plunged the Earth back into Ice Age conditions, causing global ecological collapse. From this perspective, it's possible that more sophisticated organized groups once existed far beyond the hunter-gatherers history currently acknowledges, but that all material evidence of them has been buried or erased by time and natural disasters. Some fringe researchers take it even further, placing Göbekli Tepe within a broader mythological context as a fragment left behind by pre-flood civilizations described in ancient lore, such as Atlantis, in Greek mythology, pre-Manu cultures, in Hindu tradition, or the mysterious long-lived figures before the Great Flood in the Bible. While mainstream academia often dismisses such ideas as speculative, they continue to captivate the public for one simple reason: Göbekli Tepe cannot be fully explained by what we currently know. When science falls silent, imagination begins to speak. And somewhere between archaeological evidence and the gaps in our historical record, Göbekli Tepe stands quietly as a reminder that the story of human history may be far more complex, deeper, and more surprising than the textbooks ever told us. What's undeniable is this: Göbekli Tepe changed everything. It forces us to reconsider the foundation of human history. It suggests that complex spiritual belief systems, architectural brilliance, and large-scale cooperation may have emerged far earlier than we ever imagined. And it reminds us that history isn't a straight line. It's a labyrinth full of lost knowledge, buried wonders, and stories still waiting to be unearthed. In the traditional timeline of human development, monumental architecture is supposed to be the byproduct of civilization. Cities come first, temples later. People grow crops, settle down, create social hierarchies, and only then do they build places of worship. That's the model we've followed for decades. But Göbekli Tepe doesn't fit. It was built by people who had no farms, no villages, no writing, and no kings. Yet they erected stone circles as large as 20 meters across, with carved monoliths weighing dozens of tons. This raises a radical possibility that spiritual life, not agriculture, may have been the driving force behind early human cooperation. What if everything we've believed about early civilization is backward? Could spirituality, not farming, have been the first force that brought people together? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think belief came before agriculture? Or was it survival, first meaning later? Göbekli Tepe suggests that belief came before bread. Some archaeologists now propose that the construction of sacred sites like this may have actually preceded and even sparked the agricultural revolution. Imagine this: scattered foraging bands across a fertile region are drawn to one central site, a spiritual meeting ground where myths are told, rituals performed, and identity forged. In order to maintain the labor force and the sacred calendar, they begin to stay longer, and eventually they start planting food nearby. In this model, agriculture isn't the cause of settled life, it's a consequence of religious gathering. Why would small mobile groups go to such effort? Because shared myth and sacred space are powerful. Even today, temples and monuments bind people across geography and generations. For early humans, a sacred site may have been the first true symbol of community, a place that transcended seasonal survival. Göbekli Tepe might have been a gathering point for dozens of clans, where rituals helped create group identity, resolve conflict, and pass down knowledge. The stones themselves may have functioned as a stage for myth, a theater for early cosmology, or even a portal between the physical and spiritual worlds. One of the biggest puzzles is how hunter-gatherers who lacked formal leadership structures could organize the manpower needed to quarry, shape, transport, and erect 10 to 20-ton pillars. The answer may lie not in coercion, but in conviction. Unlike later civilizations where kings or priests demanded tribute, the builders of Göbekli Tepe may have been volunteers, driven by belief, not bureaucracy. Ritual gatherings may have become massive communal events, like religious festivals, where work ceremony and feasting blended together. Cooperation wasn't commanded, it was sacred. Archaeological findings at Göbekli Tepe have uncovered numerous stone tools, animal bones, and fire pits, indicating that people did not just come here to perform rituals, but also lived here temporarily for significant periods. However, there is no evidence of permanent housing, farming, or long-term domestic structures. This has led many researchers to propose that Göbekli Tepe may have been a seasonal construction site, similar to a pilgrimage center, where people from various regions gathered at specific times of the year, possibly aligned with astronomical events, to worship, build, and reconnect with one another. In this view, Göbekli Tepe may represent the first collective human project in history, built not by stable cities, but by nomadic communities united by shared spiritual belief. Another clue to its spiritual role lies in the carved images themselves. Göbekli Tepe's pillars are filled with animals, foxes, boars, snakes, birds, scorpions, each etched with remarkable detail. These are not random decorations. Many scholars believe they are totemic, representing spiritual beings, tribal identities, or mythological stories. In some cases, the animals may align with astronomical constellations, pointing to early forms of sky watching and cosmology. If true, it would mean that Göbekli Tepe was not just a religious site, but an observatory of the heavens, a temple written in stone meant to reflect the stars above. Why would early humans still living hand to mouth spend time and energy on spiritual expression? The answer may lie in the deep psychological wiring of our species. Human beings are meaning makers. We seek stories, patterns, and purpose. Facing the dangers of wild nature, death, and the unknown, our ancestors may have turned to ritual and monument as a way to create control, community, and comfort. Göbekli Tepe could represent the moment we shifted from survival alone to symbolic thinking and transcendence. It may mark the first time humans collectively reached for something beyond themselves. What Göbekli Tepe reveals is a model of early human society that we're only beginning to understand. It wasn't just small scattered tribes scraping by. It was people driven by belief, cooperation, and imagination. The site suggests that spiritual identity may have united individuals long before ethnicity, nation, or economy. In this light, Göbekli Tepe isn't an anomaly, it's a prototype, a glimpse into a period where the sacred was not an add-on to civilization, but its very foundation. By gathering people inspiring cooperation and creating a shared sense of purpose, Göbekli Tepe may have been a catalyst that launched human history in a new direction. It may have encouraged stability, food production, technological experimentation, even early social roles like artisan ritual leader or astronomer. In other words, this temple may have created civilization, not followed it. It turns everything we thought we knew on its head. Today we still visit sacred sites, build monuments, and mark the passage of time with ceremony. These impulses didn't start with cities, they started with belief. Göbekli Tepe stands as the oldest known monument to that belief. It reminds us that long before we built walls or roads, we built meaning. And perhaps that's what makes us human, not just the ability to survive, but the desire to gather to remember and to raise stone toward the sky. The pillars of Göbekli Tepe are not blank utilitarian slabs, they are canvases. Dozens of animals are carved in high relief: foxes, snakes, scorpions, boars, vultures, lions, bulls, birds of prey. These images are not abstract or childlike. They are detailed, deliberate, and often lifelike. Some crouch as if ready to attack. Others seem to be in motion, mid-pounce or mid-flight. They are art, but they are also symbols. And they may be the earliest surviving mythic language of humankind. What do you think these animal carvings were truly meant to represent? Were they just spiritual symbols, early constellations, or something even deeper? The first mythic language of humankind. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theories. These animals aren't mere decorations. They dominate the space, appearing prominently on central pillars, often facing inward toward the circle's center, as if witnessing or guarding a sacred ritual. The consistency and intentional placement suggest meaning. But meaning of what? Were they totems, tribes, gods, ancient cosmology? No one knows for certain. But nearly all scholars agree these animals had significance far beyond the physical. One compelling hypothesis suggests that the animals carved into the stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe were not merely depictions of wildlife. They served as symbolic representations of distinct clans or tribal groups, much like totems in many indigenous cultures. Creatures such as the fox, wild boar, or vulture may have embodied ancestral spirits or spiritual guardians representing the lineage or shared beliefs of an entire community. Each group gathering at the site may have claimed a particular pillar as their own, engraving their sacred animal upon it as a way to assert their identity, presence, and role in the ceremonial activities. A more audacious theory, gaining attention in recent years, proposes that the intricate animal carvings at Göbekli Tepe might actually represent constellations in the night sky. Scholars from the University of Edinburgh have analyzed the positions and patterns of specific pillars, comparing them to ancient star maps. Intriguingly, some animals, such as the scorpion, appear to align almost perfectly with their celestial counterparts, like the constellation Scorpius. If accurate, this could mean that Göbekli Tepe functioned not only as a ceremonial site, but also as one of humanity's earliest observatories. These carvings might have served as a form of prehistoric astronomy, mapping the heavens, recording celestial events, or structuring time through a star-based calendar etched into stone. Some carvings at Göbekli Tepe are not merely isolated symbols, but appear in deliberately composed scenes. For example, the image of a vulture standing beside a headless human corpse. In many other ancient cultures, such as Mesopotamia or Anatolia, vultures were often seen as soul guides, creatures that escorted human souls into the afterlife. If this interpretation holds true, then Göbekli Tepe may be expressing early beliefs about death transformation and the journey of the soul. In that case, these carvings are not just artistic or religious symbols, but could represent one of the earliest pieces of evidence for funerary beliefs in human history. Pillar 43, also known as the Vulture Stone, is one of the most controversial and attention-grabbing symbols at Göbekli Tepe. Its surface features a complex scene: vultures with outstretched wings, a scorpion, a headless human figure, and abstract symbols. Far from being mere artwork, many scholars believe it represents a vision of the afterlife, where carrion birds guide the soul to another realm. Some bolder interpretations suggest it records a specific astronomical event, such as a comet impact or a rare alignment of constellations, linking it to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a global climate event around 10,800 BCE. Whether myth or ancient memory, Pillar 43 seems like a primordial message we are only just beginning to decode. If the carvings represent stories, then Göbekli Tepe may have been humanity's first mythological library. Each circle of pillars could represent a chapter, each animal a character in a story passed down orally for generations. The site becomes more than a temple. It becomes a vessel of memory, a place where spiritual truth, moral law, and cosmic knowledge were carved into stone, for those who could read it, a sacred code before the invention of written language. It's not just what animals are carved, it's which ones. Snakes, vultures, felines, bulls. These symbols reappear across cultures and millennia. From Sumer to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to Mesoamerica, similar creatures dominate sacred art. This suggests that Göbekli Tepe may tap into something deeply embedded in the human psyche, what Carl Jung would call archetypes. These figures may not just represent local animals, but universal ideas: danger, rebirth, protection, chaos, wisdom. In that sense, Göbekli Tepe doesn't just tell their story, it tells ours. One fascinating theory proposes that these carvings are language, a proto-symbolic system that predates script. Much like cave paintings, they convey narrative through association and placement. Some scholars suggest these carvings could be a form of proto-writing, an early attempt to fix stories in space, not on parchment. If so, Göbekli Tepe could be the cradle of visual communication, where myth, memory, and meaning were first bound together. Despite decades of research, no one can say with certainty what each animal meant. That's part of Göbekli Tepe's enduring power. It remains mysterious. It forces us to look, to question, to interpret. The carvings don't give us easy answers. They challenge us to see with ancient eyes. And perhaps that's exactly the point. Like religious symbols today, their power lies not in clarity, but in interpretation, reverence, and mystery. Why would people who lived in caves and hunted with spears spend years carving animals into stone unless those animals meant everything to them? Göbekli Tepe is a place where the wild was not just hunted, it was revered, mythologized, immortalized. These carvings are not decorations. They are echoes, clues, warnings, prayers, and they whisper across 12,000 years for us to try and understand. One of the most confounding aspects of Göbekli Tepe is not just its construction, but its deliberate burial. After centuries of use, the entire complex was intentionally backfilled with soil, debris, and stones. These stone circles, which took generations to build, were covered only to be left underground for millennia. Why would a society invest so much effort in constructing such monumental architecture, then bury it? This act of concealment is as purposeful as the building itself. It suggests a message in reverse, shaping the landscape, not to preserve for eternity above ground, but to obscure, transform, or protect something in the earth. What do you think? Why would an ancient civilization go to such great lengths to build something so monumental only to bury it on purpose? Was it a sacred ritual, a response to catastrophe, or something we haven't even imagined yet? Share your theories in the comments below. Let's see how many different ideas we can uncover together. Was the burial of Göbekli Tepe a practical decision or a ceremonial one? Archaeologists are divided. One theory suggests closure. Just as some cultures ritually seal a sacred space, these people may have ritually decommissioned the site. The act of burial could represent the end of one cosmic cycle or the conclusion of a long spiritual era. Over time, stones were covered up by successive layers of soil, maybe part of a planned rite by a lineage of ritual specialists. As structures filled up or fell out of use, burying them may have symbolized safe passage for ancestors' sanctification of the site, or a pause in ritual activity until a future generation could safely return. Another compelling idea is that the burial was protective. The Younger Dryas, a sudden cold snap around 10,800 BCE, led to environmental collapse. Could ancient builders have buried Göbekli Tepe to shield their most important sacred site as global ecosystems deteriorated, collapsing and resources dwindling? Burying the massive pillars could have been a way to preserve the site's symbolic and spiritual integrity. Instead of abandoning it to erosion, looting, or natural decay, they chose to bury it, perhaps hoping future generations would unearth and restore what was sacred. Rather than neglect, the burial could be an act of conservation under crisis. Burial in many cultures carries double symbolism. It hides, but also preserves and transforms. Think of mythic journeys to the underworld, seeds that germinate underground, or ceremonial burial of torches to relight them later. The act of interring Göbekli Tepe may have mirrored beliefs in rebirth or transformation. Ritual specialists may have buried stones to reset cosmic relationships, sacred calendars, or mythic cycles. By reinterring their sacred enclosures, they may have been initiating a controlled spiritual regeneration, preparing for future ceremonies while honoring ancestors and securing mystical order. What we perceive as abandonment could have been the intended state all along. Göbekli Tepe's builders may not have planned for permanent above-ground architecture. Instead, the site may have been conceived as a sacred ground to be ritually planted, built, used, then buried like a spiritual seed. Layers of soil would then symbolically become part of the ritual fabric. The visible stones were ephemeral, billions of layered meaning remained below. The real temple could have been the act of burying itself. Over time, new structures would be built adjacent, then also buried. Today, archaeologists are uncovering not one temple, but several buried generations, a palimpsest of sacred cycles. Göbekli Tepe breaks the mold of lasting monuments we expect temples built to stand forever. Instead, it offers complexity without permanence. By burying their work, its builders chose invisibility over longevity, secrecy over display. These choices may reflect a worldview valuing mystery, humility before the forces of nature, or dominance over the elements by concealing their achievements. The resulting site defies straightforward interpretation. Each buried level is simultaneously a testament to human achievement and a call to dig deeper, literally and metaphorically. From a scientific standpoint, the burial is a blessing. Without deliberate backfilling, stone circles would have deteriorated under wind and sun or been destroyed by erosion. Their under-earth preservation offers extraordinary clarity for archaeologists. Each fill layer acts like a time capsule, preserving tool impressions, footprints, hearths, offerings, and subtle clues. What appears here as a sealed temple is really a stratified archive, almost a religious archive, intentionally created for posterity, yet hidden for centuries. What if the burial carries messages embedded in the layering? Some see cosmic metaphor in the soil. Great circles buried underground could mirror the sun's disappearance during winter or the cyclical nature of life and death. The earth becomes both container and canvas. By burying their temples, the builders may have written symbolic messages to descendants, messages about cycles, disappearance, and eventual return. It may have been a sacred instruction. When the time is right, dig back into the earth. Göbekli Tepe may be the world's first silent temple, constructed to be found only after it's hidden. The burying becomes architecture of absence. No gate, no facade, no warning. The structure speaks not in height, but in depth, burrowed under layers of earth. If silence is sacred, burying might be the greatest ceremony, not closure of conversation, but the creation of space for waiting silence and introspection. Future generations who unearth the site are invited not just to see, but to listen in the dark. Thinking of Göbekli Tepe as part of a life cycle, birth, use, burial, rebirth, changes how we interpret it. The first circle built may have been active for decades, then ritually buried, replaced by another. The builders didn't abandon older structures, they retired them. Today, layers tell overlapping stories, layer upon layer of temples, built then closed down. It's a multi-generational aviary of faith, memory, and legacy. It speaks of a coming of age for human belief, not in chronological time, but in ceremonial time. The intentional burial of Göbekli Tepe challenges our assumptions on permanence, legacy, and architectural authority. It implies that ancient people considered absence as powerful as presence, burying as meaningful as building. It suggests that early humans may have practiced environmental humility, ritual renewal, and sacred cycles long before recorded religion. Then burying wasn't destruction, it was a sacred act of transformation, silently echoing across 12,000 years to when we would dig it up again and wonder. Beneath the dusty layers of time, Göbekli Tepe still conceals a world that modern humans have only just begun to uncover. Most people are familiar only with the iconic stone circles, like Enclosure D, featuring two T-shaped pillars standing 6 meters tall, carved with mysterious animal figures. Yet what we see today may be just the tip of the iceberg. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed the presence of over 20 other architectural structures still perfectly preserved underground and yet to be excavated. Even more astonishing, many of these appear to share the same layout as the structures already uncovered, suggesting that the entire hill may be part of a vast, deliberately planned architectural complex dating back thousands of years. So far, only about 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. This means that 95% of the site remains buried in mystery, waiting to be revealed. What do you think might be hidden beneath the remaining 95% of Göbekli Tepe? Do you believe we'll uncover something that could completely rewrite our understanding of ancient history? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Göbekli Tepe may not have been just an ancient religious site, but an entire sacred stone complex sprawling across the hilltop like a miniature city. If the unexcavated areas still conceal similar ritual spaces with aligned stone pillars, animal reliefs, and mysterious symbols, then this might be the largest ceremonial structure ever built in prehistory. But unlike later cities, Göbekli Tepe had no houses, no hearths, no traces of daily living. Only T-shaped pillars meticulously carved, as if built solely for rituals, belief, and sacred silence. It was perhaps the world's first city, not meant for living, but for connecting humans to the divine and to something beyond everyday existence. What makes Göbekli Tepe even more mysterious is the intentional design embedded in its architecture. Each enclosure is oriented with precision. The central pillars often face southeast. Many seem to align with astronomical points, possibly stars like Sirius or constellations with symbolic meaning. This kind of planning requires a shared cosmology, a worldview that dictated where and how these structures were built. The repeated motifs, serpents, foxes, vultures, boars, suggest not random art, but a ritual language spread across generations. And the sheer effort to carve, transport and position stones weighing several tons each without wheels or metal tools hints at a social organization far beyond simple hunting tribes. The deepest layers of Göbekli Tepe are dated to circa 9600 BCE, thousands of years before Stonehenge, the pyramids, or even writing. This pushes monumental architecture back to a time when, according to traditional models, humans were still living in small mobile bands. But Göbekli Tepe's builders not only shaped stone, they shaped meaning. Above the oldest layers are newer ones, smaller, simpler, and seemingly less sophisticated. The architecture becomes rougher. The symbolism fades. It's as if knowledge was lost, not gained. A regression rather than progress. This reversal challenges everything we thought we knew about human development. What if the Golden Age was at the beginning, not the end? New discoveries are gradually revealing that Göbekli Tepe was not alone in the ancient world. Across southeastern Anatolia, at Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, Hamzan Tepe, and many other locations, archaeologists have uncovered similar T-shaped stone pillars, circular layouts centered around a core, and symbolic animal carvings nearly identical in style. Some of these sites even date back to earlier than Göbekli Tepe or to the same era. This opens up the hypothesis of a network of sacred hilltops spreading out like a spiritual map of the ancient world. Rather than being a solitary site, Göbekli Tepe may have been a religious hub for an entire early civilization where ideas, symbols, and rituals were shared between different communities. Göbekli Tepe could have been the most significant node, or perhaps just one of many connecting points in a forgotten religious web, veiled by the mists of prehistory. Excavations at Göbekli Tepe proceed slowly with meticulous care down to the centimeter. This is not merely digging, it is a process of decoding history, where each layer of soil is documented, every bone fragment and stone shard carefully recorded. Once the soil is disturbed, the archaeological context is lost forever, and with it, the chance to truly understand the meaning of what remains. Yet despite such caution, new discoveries continue to emerge. A human statue with strikingly lifelike facial features, unprecedented for this era, has shocked the archaeological community. Abstract symbols never before documented are beginning to appear on the stone pillars. Even the layers of earth beneath the famous enclosure D are slowly revealing ancient secrets. Radar scans beneath the surface suggest that many more structures remain untouched truths buried in time, waiting to rise again. Beneath the unexcavated layers of Göbekli Tepe may lie mysteries that could overturn our entire understanding of prehistory. There might still be temple zones no one has ever seen, adorned with entirely different carvings and symbols, hinting at a religious diversity never before documented. Organic fragments buried deep in the earth could carry traces of DNA, revealing who built this monument, who they were, where they came from, and whom they were connected to. There may even be ceremonial altars perfectly preserved from the ancient past, untouched by modern hands. Each layer of soil unearthed is not just an answer, it's a doorway to deeper, more profound questions. Göbekli Tepe is no longer just an archaeological site. It is a mirror reflecting human history, what we know and what we only thought we knew. The T-shaped stone pillars of Göbekli Tepe are among the most astonishing artifacts of the prehistoric world. Towering up to 6 meters tall and weighing between 10 to 20 tons, some even more, these monoliths were quarried-shaped, moved, and erected by a people who had no metal tools, no wheels, and no beasts of burden. How is that even possible? This is one of the greatest enigmas of Göbekli Tepe. To understand it, we must dive into the ingenuity, collaboration, and sheer determination of our Stone Age ancestors. And now we'd love to hear what you think. How do you believe ancient people managed to erect those massive stone pillars without metal tools, wheels, or animal labor? Share your theories or thoughts in the comments section below. Who knows, your idea might open up a whole new perspective on this mystery. Just a short distance from the main enclosures, archaeologists discovered limestone quarries carved directly into the bedrock. These match the material used in the site's pillars. The stone is relatively soft when freshly extracted, allowing it to be shaped using other stones, like flint or basalt. These stone tools could chip grind and smooth the surfaces, but the process was painstakingly slow. One abandoned pillar in the quarry, partially carved but never completed, gives us a glimpse into the process. It shows the T-shape already being cut out from the ground, revealing that the builders likely carved the entire form in place before detaching it from the bedrock. But removing a 15-ton monolith from solid rock is only the beginning. Transporting the massive stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe, at a time when the wheel hadn't even been invented, was a challenge that seems almost insurmountable. Yet the people of that era devised astonishing solutions. Archaeologists believe they used round wooden logs as rollers combined with ropes woven from plant fibers to pull the stone pillars short distances. Modern experiments have shown that with just 20 to 50 people, a multi-ton stone block could be moved using wooden rollers or placed on sleds lubricated with animal fat or clay to reduce friction. The terrain of Göbekli Tepe isn't particularly harsh. It sits atop a gently sloping hill, making it feasible to use gravity or construct inclined paths to aid in transport. But what truly amazes scientists is the level of labor organization. To move dozens of stone pillars, each weighing tens of tons, these communities must have had leaders, designated work groups, and a highly coordinated system, something we rarely associate with hunter-gatherer societies. Göbekli Tepe is gradually revealing a truth-complex social organization may have emerged far earlier than we ever imagined. Carving the T-shaped stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe was not merely a feat of brute strength, it was a masterpiece of precision and extraordinary patience. Etched into the surfaces of these pillars are images of animals like foxes, snakes, and birds, along with abstract symbols, all crafted with remarkable detail. These are not random scratches. They are intricate relief carvings, less than a centimeter deep, yet smooth, symmetrical, and deliberate. And all of this was achieved without any metal tools. Experts believe that ancient builders used flint and pounding stones for rough shaping, then antler picks or sharp stones for the finer carvings. Sand and water were likely used as abrasives to smooth the surfaces. Remarkably, each stone pillar may have required hundreds of hours of skilled manual labor just for the carving alone, not counting the transport and erection of these massive monoliths. The task of erecting the massive stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe is a technical marvel that continues to astonish archaeologists. Evidence suggests that ancient builders dug deep pits into the ground, placed the base of each pillar within, and gradually refilled the soil as the stone was raised, using inclined ramps, counterweights, and sheer human effort. To keep the pillars stable, they may have constructed supporting walls around them, once upright. In certain ceremonial enclosures, central pillar pairs were found to be significantly larger and positioned more prominently, indicating that raising them had not only an engineering aspect, but also a deep symbolic meaning. This would have required precise coordination among labor groups, implying a level of organization akin to early industrial operations. Some theories propose that wooden scaffolding, large levers and ropes tied to nearby posts or stones were used to control the angle and speed of elevation. Altogether, this points to a complex manual mechanical system ingeniously invented from scratch by people who, by traditional accounts, lived in a pre-civilized era. Göbekli Tepe reminds us that technology is not always the limiting factor. Human will and creativity often matter more. Without metal, the builders used knowledge of materials, teamwork, and perseverance. Without writing, they passed down complex construction knowledge orally. Without wheels, they moved the immovable. And without cities or agriculture, they built monuments that still defy explanation. This challenges everything we thought we knew about the so-called primitive Stone Age. Although we've uncovered many aspects of Göbekli Tepe, a multitude of unanswered questions still compel researchers to dig deeper, both literally and figuratively. Why are the pillars T-shaped? What does this symbol truly represent? What criteria guided the selection of those strange animal carvings? Could there have been a shared mythological language among different human groups of the time? Was the construction of this massive complex planned from the start, or was it a gradual process of adaptation and expansion? And did each ancient community have a specific role in the overall construction effort? If we stripped away our machines, tools, and cranes, could we build Göbekli Tepe today? That's the true marvel of this place. Not just what they built, but how they did it, with nothing but hands, stone, and faith. One of the most striking features at Göbekli Tepe is the T-shaped stone pillars, with broad, flat tops and elongated bodies resembling headless human figures with outstretched arms or cloaks. Many researchers believe these are early anthropomorphic symbols, marking the moment when humans began turning stone into representations of themselves. Though writing had not yet emerged, these pillars may have served as a form of spiritual self-depiction, representing ancestral spirits, faceless deities, or sacred guiding figures. By carving stone into human-like forms, our ancestors seem to be extending the human presence, through time turning memory into permanence and leaving behind an immortal imprint in the material world. What do you think the T-shaped pillars truly represent? Are they ancestors' gods, or something else entirely beyond our imagination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your interpretation. In each stone circle, at Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists have discovered a pair of central pillars that are significantly taller and more elaborately carved than the others. Their prominent position and size suggest a special role, possibly symbolizing sacred figures such as deities, ancestors, or community leaders. This dual presence also hints at a deeper symbolic meaning, representing opposing yet harmonious forces in the universe, such as life and death, male and female, sky and earth. Thanks to this symmetry, the inner space of the stone circle seems to be configured as a cosmic axis, a place where humans connect with the divine realm and the eternal laws of life. By shaping the stone pillars to resemble human figures, ancient people humanized the sacred space at Göbekli Tepe. These pillars were not merely architectural elements, they stood like silent sentinels, observing rituals, protecting the community, and serving as a bridge between humans and the divine. Uniquely, these pillars have no heads, unlike later statues of gods, with detailed carvings suggesting that the ancients believed deities could not be confined to any physical form or specific appearance. The divine, in their view, transcended the physical and the ordinary human mind, embodying the eternal and the supernatural. In contrast to the deity theory, another view suggests that the central pillars may symbolize clans' lineages or tribal organizations, serving as spiritual territorial markers. Each pillar represents a social group standing in a communal space, marking human presence in ritual practice. When multiple pillars are placed together, they create a spiritual boundary, supporting the continuity of the community across generations. The T-shaped symbol, with its vertical pillar and horizontal top, can be interpreted as a bridge between heaven and earth. Even before pyramids or cathedrals existed, the stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe already conveyed a profound message. The sacred was not only found in the heavens, but also in the earth and the hands of humanity. The creation of this form was not merely a technical feat. It reflected a spiritual concept. It suggests that people of that time had begun to imagine a connection between the material world and the divine realm, expressed through the very architecture they constructed. The pillars at Göbekli Tepe are not only T-shaped, they are also adorned with carved animals believed to be symbolic storytelling elements or references to mythologies. In this way, the stone columns serve as memory tablets, embedding images in stone, so that stories, ideas, and beliefs could endure through time. In a world without writing, stone became the message, and the pillar, a silent storyteller standing still for thousands of years. The circular arrangement of the pillars, aligned in a unified orientation with two central columns, suggests a ritual script gathering worshippers around a center, lighting fire, echoing sounds, and orchestrating movement around the silent beings. Each pillar served to standardize the ritual space. Every position was a sacred seat. Every direction held meaning and convergence. Some modern scholars believe that the T-shape is not merely a symbolic form, but a geometric expression of cosmic perception. The vertical pillar represents the world axis, the point around which the sky revolves, while the horizontal top resembles the celestial equator, forming a bridge between heaven and earth. When these pillars are arranged in circles, the entire structure becomes an invisible cosmic compass, a sacred design that redefines how space was understood. The distances, orientations, and internal geometry suggest that people of that era had begun to use spatial thinking to conceptualize the universe not through language, but through massive symbolic stone forms. To this day, despite countless theories, no scholar has been able to definitively determine the true meaning of the T-shaped pillars at Göbekli Tepe. These massive columns lack clear human features, no heads, no faces, and no accompanying inscriptions to help decode their purpose. Yet one thing is undeniable: they were erected with a deeply symbolic intent. These stone pillars are not merely architectural structures, but vehicles for expressing something beyond ordinary life, perhaps a way to honor ancestral memory, to connect the community with supernatural forces, or to sanctify the living space of early humans. They represent a sacred form of expression, still shrouded in mystery and awaiting full understanding. The T-shaped stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe are not merely an architectural enigma. They are gateways into the philosophical depths of an early civilization. Decoding the T-shape is not simply about explaining a form, but about reaching the core spirit of this monument, the yearning to connect with the divine, with the cycle of life and death, with communal identity and ancestral traditions. Each theory proposed should not be judged rigidly as right or wrong, for all are vital pieces in the journey to understand a spiritual world that existed over 12,000 years ago, where humans first began to question existence belief and the meaning of life. For decades, scholars believed that religion only emerged after humans had settled and begun farming. However, Göbekli Tepe, dated to around 9600 to 8200 BCE, has completely overturned that assumption. The massive, intricately carved stone pillars and large-scale temple structures found at the site were built thousands of years before the advent of agriculture. This raises a startling possibility. Religion may not have been a product of agricultural life, but rather the original driving force that brought people together, leading them to form communities, and eventually the first agricultural civilizations. If religion came before farming, could it mean that our need for spiritual connection was even stronger than our need for food security? What do you think Göbekli Tepe really tells us about early human priorities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Göbekli Tepe shows no signs of housing, cooking areas, or production sites, features typically found in ancient settlements. Instead, the site consists solely of ceremonial stone circles, evoking a sense of sacredness and mystery. Archaeologists have uncovered animal bones and traces of fire scattered throughout the area, suggesting that large-scale gatherings, possibly seasonal, once took place here. It is believed that people from distant regions made pilgrimages to this site during key times of the year, not only to perform religious rituals, but also to share beliefs and strengthen communal bonds. The construction of Göbekli Tepe was neither simple nor spontaneous. It required a tightly organized system with clearly defined divisions of labor. The massive stone pillars that were quarried, transported, and erected indicate the need for a large workforce, specialized techniques, and a leadership structure capable of coordinating the entire process. This suggests that the site was not just a sacred place, but a ceremonial center of real authority. The building process was likely intertwined with religious rituals led by a spiritual elite that held significant influence within the community. Göbekli Tepe wasn't alone. It was part of a broader network of sites like Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, and Tasla Tepe, some even older or contemporaneous. These weren't isolated temples, but rather interconnected spiritual hubs, each part of a religious landscape sharing symbols and beliefs. Göbekli Tepe likely served as the central node, orchestrating rituals and shaping a regional cosmology. For a long time, it was believed that religion only emerged after societies became stable and civilizations had developed. However, Göbekli Tepe forces us to reverse that thinking. It suggests that religious belief may have been the very factor that drove prehistoric people to come together, organize food production, and build the first communities. The need to perform rituals and worship could have been the reason they chose to settle down, divide labor, and invent new technologies. Rather than being a product of civilization, religion at Göbekli Tepe appears to be the driving force that sparked civilization itself, a flame that ignited settled life and the agricultural revolution. Archaeological findings at Göbekli Tepe suggest that this site was not constructed haphazardly. Each stone-circled, T-shaped pillar and carved figure was arranged according to strict rules, likely aligned with spatial directions and astronomical phenomena. This indicates that the site was a sacred space, purposefully designed not only for rituals, but also to connect humans with the cosmos and reinforce a shared system of belief. Göbekli Tepe stands as a symbol of prehistoric collective spiritual awakening. After being deliberately buried, the stone circles at Göbekli Tepe don't appear to have been simply abandoned. They seem to have been preserved like sacred memories, as if part of a ritual closure meant to prepare for a future rebirth. This act of burial may have been part of a cyclical ceremonial system, sealing something to begin a new cycle, concealing it in anticipation of a day of revelation, bridging the visible physical world and the invisible spiritual realm. Each excavation is not merely an archaeological endeavor, but a journey into a new chapter of human civilization, where time, belief, and memory become one. Göbekli Tepe is not merely an archaeological site, it is a living dialogue between the past and the present. Each excavated layer, each newly revealed carving opens a door into the minds and beliefs of a people who lived before the invention of writing. Here, our ancestors seem to have paused their nomadic lives to jointly construct a sacred space where early religious symbols not only shaped their faith, but also guided the development of science and society. Göbekli Tepe thus becomes the starting point of a new way of life, where spirituality was etched into stone as a message entrusted to the future. Göbekli Tepe may very well be the first religious center in human history, a place where people not only believed, but acted collectively to build myths, forge spiritual connections, and form one of the earliest large-scale systems of communal faith. The stone pillars here are not merely religious symbols. They stand as evidence of social organization, large-scale cooperation, and astonishing technological advancement in a time before writing existed. If this theory is correct, then Göbekli Tepe is not just an ancient site, it is the first spark that ignited humanity's spiritual and cultural civilization.